Mechanical Lab 4. Hi, Joe Cerrone. We're going to go through the Mech Lab here for Module 4. And so what we're going to create is a 3x3 aluminum block. On a B-size title block. And we're going to use proper layering techniques, which means the object lines are going to be drawn on the object line layer. Center lines will be drawn on the center line layer. Dimensions will be placed on a dimension layer. Hidden lines will be placed on a hidden line layer, etc. So let's get started. If I come back to the module, I've updated the title block, and if you right click on that, not left click but right click, and select Save Target, you can save that target to a location on your hard drive and then open it. Now what I've updated on this is to put a point that represents 0 in the drawing. And so we come up in layout mode, or what's called paper space, and we're going to switch over to model space, and you can see that the XY coordinate is right there. We're on the object layer, and you'll notice that if I go through the interface, I have the menu bar enabled, which means you can see file, edit, insert, etc. And I also have the icons disabled, so we have the words across the bottom here. And I'm going to enable a snap and a grid, and then if we want, we can right click on that and go to settings if you like a grid, and we can set the snap for 1/4 of an inch, and that way when we start to draw this object. And so what I'll do is I'll come over here, let's see, since it's a 3x3, we'll come over 1.5 inches, and we'll go down 1.5 inches, and then we'll draw this 3 inches by 3 inches. Now you can always draw it and then move the 0 to the part, or move the part so that 0 is in the center. Either way is acceptable. So that's our base plate, and if we toggle back over here, I'll enable the drawing. It's a little slow. Let's see if it picks up a little bit that we've hit it once. Yeah, a little faster now. And so what we're going to start by doing is we've drawn this 4x4 square, and we're going to then start working on this outside geometry here, and this is kind of a raised boss that goes around the edge here, and we locate that off of the center, and it's 2 inches between each of the holes, or 1 inch this way, 1 inch this way, yeah, 1 inch each way. So let's go and set that up. We'll go here to offset, and we'll offset 0.5, and that didn't seem to work right. Let me undo that. It must have taken a through point. So we'll say offset 0.5, enter. That's better. And then what we will do is we will draw the outside edge here, which is this radius. And so we've located these points, and we'll then draw a circle with a 2-inch radius, and then we will draw these arcs which are tangent to these radiuses with a tangent radius circle command. So we'll locate that point, and then that radius is going to be 0.25. And if you hit the enter key or the space bar, it'll bring back the last command. I can also right mouse click and say repeat circle, locate that, and if you read down here it remembers the last radius, so you just have to hit enter and it will make the circles the same size. Now we'll go into the tangent radius option, and I really don't need these construction lines, so before I do I'm going to click on these to put grips on them and then select erase. Select tangent radius, and when you select the tangent radius, turn off the snap, and you need to select it in the quadrant that's going to be tangent to it. And so I'm going to say from tangent here and tangent here, give me a radius of 4 inches. Excuse me, I picked up tangent. I went tangent radius. Tangent 4. Trim. Enter to make everything a cutting line. Erase. Tangent radius. Tangent. It remembers the last radius as 4. Trim. Erase. Tangent. Trim. So we can also trim out the circles here, so we'll say trim, enter to make everything a cutting line, and so now we have the outside perimeter. We can then do these 4 holes with a diameter of 0.250. Center diameter. Specify the center point. Let's get down here and say this point here. Diameter of the circle is 0.25. We don't really need the grid on here. You do need O snaps. I don't need 3D O snaps, but if you right click on the O snaps, the ones that are pushed in are the ones that are on. If you're not sure, if you can't read those, you go to settings. We want to make sure that we've enabled the center O snap. So you kind of glide over it and then bring it here. Remembers the last size of the circle, and you just take the default. Now that we have those, let's take a look at the drawing. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create these points, these locations for these arcs, and we're going to use the same technique. We're going to locate the center of these arcs, and then we're going to draw circles, and then we're going to do tangent radiuses for those arcs, and then trim. So we'll switch over to a centerline layer. I'm going to turn my snap on and just kind of eyeball. Actually, I'm not eyeballing it, I'm using the snap, so it's exactly right down the middle. And then we're going to offset those lines 1 inch. We actually offset them 0.5 to each side, and then the distance between them is 1 inch. And we'll draw a 1/4 inch radius circle on the object line layer. We can verify that if we want by using a radius dimension. Turn off the snap. Yep, that's it. Now that we have those, we're going to try our tangent radius. And so we'll say tangent, tangent, and the radius will be 1. And we'll trim that. Now before I trim, I may want to disable the or turn off the centerline layer so that I don't have to trim as much. Trim works to any entity. And then we'll draw another tangent, tangent, trim. Tangent. Now it's not tangent, tangent, radius on the verticals, just on the top and on the bottom. If we come back here to the drawing, these lines here, and it's a little hard to tell, we may have to increase the magnification a bit, appear to go to the tangency point, which is also the quadrant of that arc location. So if we say line and we go quadrant to quadrant, that will work for us. And again, we can check our OSNAP settings and see that you have quadrant enabled. And trim. Okay, we can then enable the centerline layer. And what I prefer that we do here is not to have these great big center lines across the object. We can have it across the 0 point like they do in the drawing, like that. And then we can add small center marks on the center mark layer. So we'll go to center mark layer, annotate, and here if we pin this, you can see there's a center mark creator. So we'll click on that and then select the arcs that we want those center marks to be in. And that's set up in your dimension style. We can also put the arcs here. And it's a pretty smart program. It actually measures the size of the geometry and makes the center marks proportional to that. So that's the front view of this drawing. The side view of this drawing we can project over on the object line layer. And what I'll do is I'll just, I think I'll enable a snap because we have a snap on here anyway, and you can kind of see I'm able to then kind of glide over here, establish a tracking point, and then bring this down, and I'll track over here. That way I don't have to go and measure as much. And the object is going to be 0.125 in this direction. And in this direction. Now you see how my snap is failing me because the snap setting is not fine enough. In other words, it's 0.25 and it needs to be 0.125. To adjust it, I right click on snap, I go to settings. On the XY spacing I'll go 0.125 and enable, and now you'll see that it runs smoother. So that's our base part of it. Now the other component we can project over from this intersection. And if you're not getting the intersection, what you can do is you hold Shift right mouse click and select intersection to make sure that you're truly pulling that over. And I'll also grab ortho and I'll overshoot that a little bit so I can trim it. Shift right mouse click. So here we have the side view somewhat detailed. We'll clean this up a little bit and then we'll add some dimensions. When you do the side view, basically you just want the geometry. We could put all of it, but for this we're going to be setting this up for a CAD CAM package. Essentially what I want is a side view that shows the location of the major center points, and so that would be the holes, and so we'll drag those over. And if you use snap, it's really easy to keep the center marks in between the lines. Now you'll see that the center marks aren't quite visible here, and what you can do to adjust that is you can either individually set the properties, or you can type LT SCALE and decrease that value. I'm going to try 0.5, now 0.4. 0.4 seems to be a value that will work for me. And so I'll adjust those values. You can project over the hidden line geometry. If you're taking an engineering graphics class, what we will have to do is to show these lines as hidden from the edge view, and the profile also as well, which has a 0.125 pocket, so that's going to be hidden to this point. The last thing that we'll do is to detail it, or to put the dimensions on. As you dimension it, you'll use the Annotate tab and Linear Dimensions, and we'll start by giving the overall dimension of that, and then we'll put in the other dimensions. And for the sake of expedience, I'm not going to make all of the dimensions on this. Some things like putting radial dimensions on, you'll see some notes on the drawings where I'll ask you to disable the center mark, and that's because if I put a diameter dimension, and I'm going to turn off my snap on this hole here, you'll notice that it comes in, and then if I want to add the word typical to that, I can double click on that and then click next to it. And it's like a word processor, and so we can add that, but you'll notice that it double center marked it. I have a green one on top of a red one. And to disable that, you go to the dimension styles and you modify the symbols and arrows and you turn it off. Center marks none. And OK that and close that. And that'll keep that from happening. And then lastly, what we're going to do here is to double click in the viewport, set the scale. Full scale is fine. That's preferred rather than blowing it up a little bit bigger. Once you have that, what you're going to do is you're going to lock the viewport, Double click outside of the viewport, and then we can put our title block information in that. That completes Mechanical Lab 4.